Hello everyone, today we will finally finish the daily login and some inventory displays on Unity side. We have our server started. When we look, we have a lot of services locally running. I changed debugging back to localhost because it's just faster than always deploying to the cloud. And we have made some additions to our Unity client, and let me log in and you will see it right away. Let me create an account, which in best case doesn't exist for now, because then our backend daily login is triggered. I mean, it's triggered every day, so I could also log in an account which hasn't logged in today. And what we now have, when a daily login occurred, there's a little animation that the daily login happened. On the left side, you saw a little animation that the inventory has changed. And we now see at the top right side the coins we have in our inventory. What I can also do is trick the system a little bit. I could manually in the database create events for the inventory. I've created one for test 1, which is this one, and maybe we create a new one which will actually change our inventory, and maybe we add 10 coins but we remove 20, and obviously this needs a new ID. And when I save it, let me put that aside and press save, then we will see the inventory will update and our inventory change screen will show some changes. This is the feature on server side. We already had this feature fully running, but on Unity side we needed to build this feature, and I want to rapidly show you how I have done that. First of all, a lot of magic is in animation, because I heavily leverage animation for Unity for that. For example, the fade in or the daily login when it comes in is done with Unity animation. I made a simple animation controller which just starts at my animation. So when I create this object, this animation is directly played. That's exactly what I want. And as you can see, it raises to Y0 position and the alpha changes. One interesting note with alpha isn't linear in the feeling, so I flatten the curve a little bit by making alpha 25%, where normally it would be 75%. So alpha isn't linear when in our perspective. So it makes sense to have some ease out or ease in depending on what you want. And at the end, after 3 seconds, I have an event. So when you press the plus button here, you can call an event, and this basically calls my function from the inventory change, destroy myself. So the animation is actually triggering this function and destroys the object after some seconds. So game designer could come in here and say, yeah, players need to see the entry for shorter and longer, and just move this event and everything is working, no code changes needed, which is great. That's why I heavily leverage the animation stuff from Unity, because for such features, a lot of people I see do tweening or something like that, which it works great also, but it's always kind of fiddling around with the code. And this, with such animations, someone could come in here, change the animation without knowing anything about code, but maybe has a more artistic view than I have, because let's face it, this is programmer art here. So for the daily login, it's actually quite the same. So when we go to the daily login, it has an animation. I was thinking Or I could change different things in the animation. Normally I would do one animation like I did with the other one, but what you can do is you can have chain animations with a transition without any conditions. Then this animation will change to the other animation directly. And what you can do is you can give this animation an exit time. And if it's 1, then it plays the animation once. And if it's 2, then it plays the animation twice. In my case, it plays the animation twice. You see it at the very bottom here and the timeline. And I have no fade in direct, so it directly starts after 2 times playing show, it shows height. So because the show animation isn't loopable, it stays at the last frame, and after 1 second of staying at the last frame, in my case, it will switch over to the height animation. This is not a best practice to implement that. I would change that to 1 animation like we did with the other one, but I wanted to show some features. On code side, it's actually quite simple. I refactored a lot of code to make initializing with the clients easier, because we are microservice. We have a lot of clients for different services currently. We might change that in the future, create some kind of load balancer in the backend, but for now this is fine. And if you remember, we initialized every client differently, and I mitigated that and made it easier. For example, when you have a client, you just need to call initialize client wrapper, give it some information like the port, and it will what it has to display on our status screen with the progress bar. And if you don't provide anything, then it says you just initialized 1 client, but you can give it a stat and a finish value in the progress bar, because there's when you created your character and we log in, then we create 4 clients, which is map, chat, inventory, and events. And each of them gets some chunk in the progress bar, so the progress bar doesn't go back and forth, so it goes further for each client connecting. And that's working pretty fine and makes the code simpler, so I like that. So for our clients, we have our inventory client, which is really straightforward. It waits for a request inventory message, and if it got one, then it checks if we requested the inventory 100 milliseconds or less. If that's the case, we don't request it again. That's some kind of rate limitation on client side to not spam the backend with give me my new inventory, give me my new inventory when an inventory change has happened. So everywhere in the application, we can just pops up publish request inventory, and the inventory will update. At least we will get a new inventory from the backend. Also, when a player event happens, it also requests a new inventory. This is to, for example, daily login screen comes, and it comes a little bit late because the backend has lagged. Then the inventory still has changed, and we need to update that too. Basically, for now, just to update at the top right side the hub. And let's go to the HUD screen when we are there, which is a typical screen controller for us. And we have a subscribe on inventory message. So when a new inventory comes in, we check if there are coins in there, because if we don't have any coins, then we display 0, obviously, which might be the initial case. In our case, it's most likely not the case, because the first thing you do is a daily login and you get some coins. But it can happen when there are some race conditions. You get your inventory, but the daily login isn't processed at the backend for now. Then it might be 0 till the daily login comes. Then you get an event. This event is then processed. You request a new inventory, and the inventory gets back from the backend, and this gets updated, which is exactly how we want it. So the text gets updated, really straightforward. when we get an inventory message. So every time inventory comes, this HUD screen gets updated. It's just the text here at the top right. So really easy for daily login. It's pretty much the same. I mean, we implemented a framework to make the features easily developable, pretty alike. So we get a player event from the backend, and only if the player event is a daily login, doesn't make sense differently, then we set daily login to active. And since it's inactive, when you activate it, the animation controller will activate, the animation will activate, and we see this cool animation. So after this animation is played once, it is active and the animation is played through, which means if another daily login event comes, because I don't know any reason currently, but let's say we have a bug and we send 2 daily login events to the client, it doesn't play twice because it is activated through. This line doesn't change anything and it's just played once, which is great, because why should you get daily login rewards twice? You might be wondering what is missing. It's currently we just have coins, we don't have different items, and we don't switch, for example, the image in what you get. It's always coins for now. So, and we have this inventory update changes where you saw the inventory changes on the left. Let me play them again. I think I logged in with test 1. Let's do test 2 now. And let's change our player, why not? On the left side you see this animation. This animation works differently because when we have multiple of those, if I really fast go back to my database and create an event with a lot of those, we are test 2, so I steal that event, create a new item, and I could do something like that. Which is a stupid event, but for I can't do it because it's a dictionary. Let's create an event like that. Then you see we add 2, and we could add as many as we want to, and this would work. Maybe we want to increase spacing because 5 didn't look good in my opinion. Let's do that again. This looks better if you ask me. It was in play mode, so it's reversed. So what I did here, I have a screen which is always active because it's a transparent image, so no one cares. And it has a grid layout, and my grid layout is configured to go from top to bottom. So I have when I add cells inside there, they go from top to bottom. So with that in place, let's round this number up, sorry. So start corner is upper left, and since the child is as big as the screen, it will go top to bottom. If I make the child smaller, it might feel like a grid with multiple entries in a row. So I have a prefab with my things in there, so nothing too fancy. And when I add the prefab multiple times for debug purposes, then I broke something because I changed the width too high. So Okay. So let's do it like that again. Unity will add the entries below each other, which is great for us because that's exactly what I want. And Unity places this element exactly at the position we want to. You see the Y position changes, and we can't change it because this is a layout element, and this layout element is part of this grid layout. So, but I want to do our fancy animation, but the great thing is I know exactly where the animation should end, which is basically this object. When I create a child object, for animation purposes, I could set the pivot to top, which I did. So when Y is 0, it means that the animation object is at the destination of the parent object where it is, because the pivot is at the top, and 0 at the top means the object is at the location at least Y position wise of the parent object. Also, sometimes your pivot here is 0.5. Then you have this minus value, which is exactly the middle value of the height of the object. It's height 50, so that's 25. And if it's 1, then it's at the very top, and if it's 0, then it's at the very bottom. Then we have to minus 50 to get to this position. So 1 is in this case the greatest because it's the top of our object, and we pivot is the top to our parent, which makes 0 exactly the position of our parent object. Why this is important is I have now an animation. If we go to animation, where I can change the Y position of this object. So Y position minus 500 is somewhere at the bottom, and it goes up to exactly 0. And since we align 0 with the object in the grid, it's always at the position at the end of the grid. So I could add as many as I like, and it will always go to that position. So when I play the bottom one, it will all go to that position, which is exactly what we wanted. Since I changed the width of the parent container, my layout element also changes the width and everything. First of all, let's remove the items. Let's test how it looks like, because I changed something. I highly encourage you, if you change something, that you obviously test that. So let's create a new account, maybe change to an orange, and let's see. Looks good to me. So when I log in again with an account which I already logged in, we don't see daily login, and we don't see an inventory change because the backend doesn't notify us that the daily login has happened. So let's create another account. So we have another daily login. Let's see. Yes, this looks great. And this is it for now. I really want to thank my patron Julian for supporting this project, and I wish you all a great weekend. Bye.